Photoshop Project 6 Advertising Samples. We are working on Stage 2, working in perspective. We're going to begin with the file that we cleaned up of the studio. Open up the Photoshop file and we're going to place a banner on the front of the studio. To do that, we need to go to File and we're going to Place Embedded and select the banner file. Now, at this point, I probably should have told you that you need to have this above the background copy layer. So I am going to actually not place this file. I will select background copy and then I will go to File and Place Embedded, which will bring this up then above that. Now I can lock my perspective on here and change this to 75%. Brings it to the proper size, and we're going to drag this up and place this on the front of the building facade and put it in the correct location. Might want to move that just a little bit so that it is pretty much on the corner. And then I am going to grab it. Notice it's pretty much the right size there, but I am going to grab the center handle on the left, but before I do, I will hold down my Control key, and that will allow me to skew this and bring it down and size it properly so that it fits correctly across the front of the building. At this point, it's still not placed right, so I'm going to pick up the upper corner, still holding down my Control key, and drag this down. I can hold my Shift key to keep it straight if I would like, and pull it into the proper position so that it's held the correct perspective now. And when it's placed properly, just enter or hit the commit button on the top of the window. With that banner layer selected, we're going to add an effect. You can do that through Layer Effect or select the effects at the bottom and select Drop Shadow. We would like the drop shadow to be Multiply Black, approximately 75% opacity. The distance should be 10 pixels, a spread of 0, and the size is 5 pixels. And select OK. This is going to put a very small drop shadow around the banner. I forgot one more important item. Let me go back in, and to correct this, I can simply double click on drop shadow. I need to change my angle. If you note, right now you can't see any sign of a drop shadow, so I need to bring this over to approximately 125 for the angle, which is going to change my drop shadow and bring it so that it matches the direction of the shadows from the rest of the building. Once that's in place, you can save this file and you can close it. Open the Office file that we created earlier when we corrected the color in the shadows. We are going to add a perspective warp to get rid of this look like the building is kind of leaning away from us. It's a normal thing that you get from cameras, but we can take that back out again. We are going to select the background layer and go to Edit and select Perspective Warp. If you get any kind of a pop-up message, just click Close after you read it, and then you're going to create a perspective grid, and we can click anywhere. I'm going to click at the top of the building in the center, and I can now click and drag to follow the lines of the building. I want to make sure I include all of my building on this side, and well, actually we'll include the whole thing all the way around, but let me click to define the edges of my perspective plane. And once I'm satisfied that everything is selected, I'm going to click to create a second pane on the other side. I'm going to grab the right corner of that and pull it over to match it it will kind of pop to it, the top of the first grid, and it's going to completely fill and match up to that. And now I can click on the second side and move the edge pieces around on that and create a panel on this side. Now for the straightening, I'm going to select warp, and I'm going to pull this straight out to correct the lean that we have in the building. And you can see how I'm pulling that building out, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side and pull the building to make it straighter. Once I'm happy with the correction that I made, I'm going to select the commit button and let the computer make a correction. You can see there's been some pulling out and everything, but it looks pretty good. It's much better, much more true to what the content should be. Now I'm going to select the crop tool and pull this down. Make sure you have delete crop pixel selected, and I'm going to just pull this down a little bit so that I don't have any of those transparencies showing, and I will then click. This is going to be a good place to save this. This now is a floating layer, so when we save this again, it's going to become a Photoshop file, but that's good. We want to work with the Photoshop file. So I'm going to do save, and it will give me a Photoshop file. Don't close this because we're going to put that same banner across the front of this building. Open up our banner, select all, Control A, copy it, Control C, and then you can close this. Now you can do this all through select all and edit and copy, but it's very nice to be able to use the shortcut keys. We have this now saved, and I'm going to just simply change the move tool just so that I have something static. We're going to add a new layer, and I apologize for everything being off a little bit. I had to change where I was on my screen because it wasn't going to capture the next thing that we're going to do. So let me go ahead and add a new layer, layer 1. Make sure that is the active layer. We're going to go to filter, and we're going to select vanishing point. By default, my create plane tool should be selected. Now this has taken me a long time to work with because it didn't want to work correctly, and I'm afraid it might botch up for you as well. So I will give you as much information about working with this as I possibly can. And I clicked on here to set my anchor point where the two sides of the building meet, and I'm going to follow the edge of the building. Now I exaggerated this just a little bit. I'm running off a little bit onto the side because I found out that I was having issues, and this was one way that I could correct it. So I have this lovely plane that has appeared, and I'm going to resize this, and I'm going to adjust this so that I get a blue grid. If you only see a red grid coming up, work with it until you get this blue grid. This is what we want. This is golden. If it stays red, you will not be able to get the proper steps that you need to do. So you might have to adjust this a little bit to get that blue grid to show. But please work at it until you do, or close it and rework it until you can get this. The red grid will give you errors. And then we're going to resize this so that we're a little bit smaller. We want to be about halfway between the window and the top of the building, on all the way around, halfway or thereabouts between the two windows. And we may need to move this just a hair to get this to line up a little bit better. Make sure, I see I almost had the red one, which wasn't going to work. Make sure it lines up and looks as good as you can get. And then you're going to hold your control key down, and you're going to drag to create another panel. Now this was important because this will not work if this piece was red. It will not allow you to make the changes you need. Release your control key, and then you're going to position the panel so that it is in the proper perspective. You can hold down your shift key to keep this moving in a straight line up and down. You might want to do that, but we just need to get this wrapped around so that we have a nice grid. You can select either side that is flowing around the window. And now we are going to paste in Control V, and that's going to paste in that item that we selected before. Click inside the marquee and drag it onto any part of the perspective. Look at how that just plops around. Look at how nicely that file follows that. And we can drag this down so that it fits correctly. Select the transform tool. That's going to let us make some adjustments. And in the setting mode, make sure you have allow multi-surface operations and deselect clip operations to surface edges. What that would do, if that's selected, it will limit this to appearing only on one piece of the grid. We want it on both. So make sure that that is deselected. And now you can go in and we can make adjustments. We can change the size of this. We can wrap this around so that it fits a little bit better. Pull it down, and we can resize to make this fit like it should. And you can position this wherever you need to get this on here. We can actually pull this out a little bit more, and look at how that nicely wraps. May not look 100% like the one on the book. That's perfectly fine. Nobody will know but you whether it exactly matches or not. We're not going to worry about that. But pull the banner until all of the banner fits within that defined plane, and then reactivate the clip operations to surface edges. And that's going to get rid of most of our crawling ants. And then click OK to apply this. Isn't that wonderful? Look at how cool that is. Now we're going to put in a drop shadow just like we did on the other building, because look at how flat that looks. It kind of sinks into the building, and we want it to actually stand up a little bit. So in our layers panel, select a drop shadow. Again, we're doing a multiply black with a distance of 5 pixels, an opacity of around 75%. Our spread should be 0. We have a size this time of 10 pixels, but look at what the shadows are. Do we want to have that same shadow that we had before? No, because our shadow is falling the other direction. So this time we want our direction angle to be 40, which is going to, you can see on the angle here, the light is coming from the top right, and that's going to look more natural on here. And we can say OK to that, and you have this saved. If you have a lot of difficulty with this, you can turn this into a TIFF file and let me take a look at it. If everything goes well for you, we're going to go to File. I'm going to save this. If it went really well for you, just save this out again as a JPEG. If you had difficulty, if there's something that you want me to take a look at, turn it into a TIFF file, which is going to hold all of the layer information. Do your LZW compression with a JPEG compression for the layer, and I will be able to take a look at it. You may need to get this small enough. You may need to go into image size and change this file down from a 300 pixel per inch down to a 72 or 100 pixel per inch file so that it's small enough for me to see. Right now we're looking at a 21 meg image, which is a little big.